Hey everybody, Dan Scott here, and first off, let me say please forgive my nasally congestion. I'm just getting over a cold, and although I may sound sick, I feel great. So I'm going to make a video where I want to discuss these two parallel verses in Matthew chapter 24, verse 43, and Luke chapter 12, verse 39, which involve three questions as to what kind of day the Lord comes and what kind of watch time and hour the thief comes. Which consequence of not being able to answer or perceive these questions is that one's house or dwelling may become dug through. And what began my journey in questioning what is a watch time, that I could begin to answer this question, was my noticing the absence of a first watch time in Luke chapter 12, verse 38, which began my journey into seeking deeper understanding regarding these watch times, where of course when I began seeking, I didn't even know what a watch time was. I mean, should knowing what kind of watch time or hour the thief comes, Luke 12:39, should these be questions which are answerable? How about what kind of a day the Lord comes? Matthew 24:42. Are these important questions to know? Well, I say emphatically yes. Because again, the consequence is that if one is not perceiving, they are permitting their house or their dwelling site to be dug through, okay? And dug through does not sound favorable. So it's my goal in this video to answer these three questions and pray that you will perceive. However, before we consider these questions regarding what kind of day the Lord comes, but also what kind of watch time and hour the thief comes, let me briefly talk about what a watch time or watch times are. Simply stated, these watch times, also termed begard times in the Old Testament, are 4 periods of time in the night. Not in the daytime, but in the night hours, from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., divided into 4 watch times. Psalms chapter 90, verse 4. And it was during these hours that herdsmen would keep watch over their sheep flocks, their small livestock, including goats and sheep. And on the screen, I've placed all of the occurrences where, notice there are only 5 total occurrences in the New Testament. However, what we need to perceive is that the Greek noun translated watch time or watch times plural occurs about 47 total times in the New Testament, which is from the noun phulache, where again only 5 out of these 47 are translated either watch times plural or the other 4 occurrences which are all singular, where I've made many references to Luke chapter 12 verse 38, concerning the second and the third watch times. So basically, I'm not going into great detail. The concept of watch times has to do with a guardship in the night watch, specific the overseeing of flocks of small livestock, namely sheep and goats, the herds of which herdsmen oversee, hence, fear not you small herdlet, Luke 12:32. Where the context of Luke chapter 12 is central to the concept of the watch times. Again, Luke 12:38, the very reason I began questioning the watch times. And also understand that a watch time is not speaking of a time that we watch, like we should be watching. No, when we're admonished to watch, be sober and watch, this is from the Greek gregareo, which is a verb in a different word family. Where in Mark 13:35 we see this verb, watch, gregareo, be attentive to. And the reason phulache is not translated guard or guarded or guarding, etc., is because this is also a completely different word family from phulache, or gregareo. So the way that the DLT translation, the Devar literal Bible translation, treats these words is according to a pattern of words being healthy. So this is the very basic foundation of what watch times are, according to the noun phulache. They involve times when herdsmen, as overseers of the small livestock, would divide the night into 4 portions, according to the begard times of the night. which New Testament term watch times is the same as the begard times of the night, or the watch times of the night. And the widest concept here accords with the last days in the process of the leading of the astray herd into the allotments, where the one last sheep that falls into the pit, Matthew 12:11, will be herded and raised up. Namely, the other sheep of John chapter 10, verse 16, where in verse 2, the herdsmen here are specific to the third watch time of the night. We're also in relationship to small livestock. See my videos, lambs and sheep. So I said all that to point out the relationship of herdsmen to the watch times. However, what I want to focus on in this video is the relationship of the watch times to the coming of the Lord Jesus. So here in Luke chapter 2, verses 7 and 8, this involves the coming of the Lord according to his flesh, his humanity, where he is termed a foreborn, with the mention of the herdsmen and keeping watch according to the watch times of the night. We could say this was his first coming. And the noun translated a foreborn is from the a-time occurring Greek noun identifying that which is foremost being or foremost becoming of its class. Where, of course, here in Luke, it's according to his arriving in flesh and blood as the aforeborn one. However, more important is his identity as the risen and ascended Christ, also being identified as the aforeborn one, according to his resurrection, where we also see him as the aforebeing one in all, which all here is specific to his body, those who will complete his body according to the blissfulness of the first three watch times. So we, according to the body, are also aforeborn ones, who of course come through the flesh of humanity, but we also, according to the resurrection, will allot the regency, each according to his own order, to be manifested out of the died ones, sons of God, according to events that will unfold in the last days, which last days encompass the 4 begard times of the night. So let's come back to these 3 very important questions surrounding the phrase, what kind of? That is, what kind of day the Lord comes, and what kind of watch time / hour the thief comes, of which the thief, of course, is the Antichrist, the instead laying one, also termed the son of the holaway loosening. Or let me say right off that the answer to all 3 of these questions precedes the midnight hour, the very context of the parable of the 10 virgins. Or let me add that when you search the phrase, what kind of, well, in relationship to days, watch times, and hours, you only find these 3 verses which are on the screen here. And when you compare these side by side, notice only in Matthew does it mention what kind of day in relationship to the Lord's coming, and what kind of watch time in relationship to the thief's coming. Where in Matthew there is no hour mentioned according to the thief's coming. However, in Luke chapter 12, no day of the Lord's coming is mentioned, nor is the watch time mentioned, but only the hour, what kind of hour the thief comes. Where we'll see what kind of watch time and hour the thief comes is the same. However, the context of the audience of Matthew and the audience of Luke are different, because the hour of Luke involves a resurrection of which those in Matthew will be participating in, where on the other hand, the audience encompassing Luke chapter 12 being the small herdlet of verse 32 will be among the living population when the hour of this resurrection takes stand, encompassing the unveiling of the lawless one in that hour. And let me add that don't misunderstand the statements when Jesus said, you do not perceive, etc. Because that does not mean we cannot perceive the answer to all 3 of these questions here. Because since the unveiling of the mystery given through the Apostle Paul, we can now answer these questions. We can perceive in what kind of day the Lord comes and what kind of watch time and hour the thief comes. of which the clues to answer these three questions are found within the verses of Luke chapter 2, verses 7 and 8, Mark chapter 13, verse 35, and Hebrews chapter 1, verses 6 and 7. Because Jesus coming as the aforeborn one according to the flesh has a parallel according to his coming again. Which brings us to Mark chapter 13, verse 35, where Jesus said, "Hence, watch, gregoreo," meaning be alert, attend to, and pay attention to. Where here Jesus himself now is laying out the hours that encompass the beguard times of the night in relationship to the statement when the Lord of the house, oikia, house, comes into the house of the dwellage, that where we dwell. So in relationship to the watch times as days, which again I speak about in my video, The Last Days, the day that the Lord comes has to point to the beginning, the coming again, where his first coming in Luke 2:7 is in relationship to the beguard times of the night. Where then, of course, logically, according to Mark 13:35, the beginning is eventide, when he will again come according to eventide, midnight, cock's voice, and morning. So, of course, we have to start at the beginning, which is eventide, first watch time. And where we see Jesus as a foreborn one in Luke chapter 2, verse 7, in relationship to the mention of watch times, where do we again see the Lord coming as a foreborn one? In parallel to Luke chapter 2, verses 7 and 8. Well, it's right here in the first chapter of Hebrews, verses 6 and 7, where the key word identifying this timeline is again. Okay? This is the beginning of him being led again into the dwellage, which would have to have the beginning at eventide, according to the watch times. Where yet another connection to the Lord of the house, the oikia, coming, Mark 13:35, is the word translated dwellage in Hebrews 1:6, from the Greek noun oikomene, the whole inhabited dwellage, which is derived from the word oikia, which is the feminine house, and the verb describing I dwell. You could say the dwellage is the house of the dwelling, which oikomene should never be translated earth or world, because the Greek noun gay defines the earth, and the Greek noun cosmos defines the world, which the DLT always translates cosmos. So here the dwellage identifies all inhabited regions, such as under the earth, Philippians chapter 2, verse 10. It's under the crust of the earth, where this word actually identifies a superposition under the earth, epi, from the preposition epi and gay, earth, epigeos, which accords with the fallen angels and the Tartarus, where fallen angels have been imprisoned since their transgression in the days of Enoch, Noah, and Jared. They fall under the context of this dwellage here. But the point being is that the dwellage includes all of these areas. But the point is that the connection between the statement of Mark 13:35 regarding the oikia, the Lord of the house comes, points right to Hebrews chapter 1, verse 6 and the parallel concerning the dwellage, the oikomene, when he does come, of which, of course, the context of the again leads the aforeborn, begins the hour of eventide, which watch time day is the day of Christ. Philippians chapter 1, verses 6, 10, and Philippians chapter 2, verse 16. Day of Christ, hence, what kind of day the Lord comes. So this kind of day the Lord comes executes God's righteous judgment at its very origin beginnings, according to the preceding out resurrection, of which Hebrews chapter 1, verse 7 is describing. So again, this answers the question as to what kind of day the Lord comes, but what kind of watch time and hour the thief comes is not according to the first watch time. So how do we determine what kind of watch time and hour the thief comes? Well, notice in Mark 13:35, when Jesus mentions eventide, there's a big gap between eventide and midnight, where, on the other hand, from midnight into the morning, cock's voice is named. And of course, the unspecified in between from eventide into midnight is the second watch time, 9 p.m. This jump from eventide to midnight is something that we have to really pay attention to. Again, as I talked about in my video, The Last Days, the second watch time, day, begins one of the plural days of the Son of the Human, Luke 17:22. The beginning of second watch time, 9 p.m., begins the first half of Daniel's 70th week, where in the middle of the night is the half of the 70th week, where the blissful of Daniel chapter 12, verse 12, those dragging along into the 1335 days, is the transition from the finishing of third watch time into the ascending of the black-redness of the fourth watch time, which I talk about in my video, You're Going to Hell. So understand, eventide does not begin Daniel's 70th week. No, eventide is according to the out-resurrection and the up-loosening, according to the day of Christ, not the subsequent days of the Son of the Human. Which days of the Son of the Human are according to the second and third watch times. And where eventide involves what is termed the out-resurrection, the ex-anastasis, Philippians 3:11, well, the hour in which the thief comes, the same watch time, also involves a resurrection. John chapter 5, verse 29. And unlike the out-resurrection described in Hebrews chapter 1, verse 7, for those who will hear on the voice of the Son of God to become manifested sons of God in glory, the hour of the resurrection according to the second watch time is a revealed in flesh resurrection for those who will hear on the voice of the Son of the Human. Because now we're dealing with the days of the Son of the Human. So do you understand? The first watch time is the day of Christ. The second watch time in between eventide and midnight begins the first day of the plural days of the Son of the Human, when all in the sepulchres hear on his voice, the voice of the Son of the Human. So the point being is that we have to consider those who will be alive on the earth at the hour of 6 p.m. eventide. The very reason for the absence of the first watch time in Luke 12:38 with only the mention of the hour to perceive, but also the subsequent resurrection pertaining to that hour, which the answer to both of what kind of watch time and what kind of hour the thief comes is the same. It's according to the 9 p.m. second watch time, the same hour the thief comes. And yes, those who hear on the voice of the Son of God also accords with an hour, but it's not the hour and watch time of 9 p.m., but rather the hour of 6 p.m. eventide. So the second and third watch time of Luke 12:38 encompass the 70th week of Daniel, where the hour of the first watch time is not there. So the point being is that the hour of Luke 12:39 could not possibly refer to the hour of the first watch time, which is not even mentioned, in that the second and third watch times accord with the days of the Son of Human is also seen in Luke, according to the days of the Son of Human, where also only Luke reveals the plural days in Luke 17:22, saying, "But he said to the learning ones, days will come, when then you will desire to perceive one of the plural days of the Son of the Human." Not the day of Christ, not the day of the Lord, but the days of the Son of the Human, the Anthropos. So, the consequence to not perceiving in what kind of hour or watch time the thief comes is the digging through of one's house or dwelling site, which consequences either the entering into the wedding feasts in the middle of the night or the being locked out. When Luke wrote, "Days will come when you will desire to perceive one of the days," well, which day will they have desired to perceive? Well, it would be that which is favorable. That which is not dug through, being that which precedes the middle of the night, the second watch time. So those who will have desired to perceive that day will be the foolish, locked out, into the third watch time day, who will then be among those dragging along to the 1335 days. And the deepest context of the dug through is that those who are not watching and sober-minded are the same. We'll assume that the Antichrist is the Christ, when it will be the antithesis to the Christ, the thief. So understand what kind of day the Lord comes is a resurrection kind. And also what kind of an hour and what kind of a watch time the thief comes is also a resurrection kind. Where one resurrection is a resurrection of precedence, a revealed in glory, and the other subsequent, a revealed in flesh, then later taken up in glory. And I realize I'm repeating myself and I'm sticking to this whole concept of the watch times, but this is the revelation the Lord has given me. And others who get a hold of this will prevent the door from being shut on them in the middle of the night. And I feel compelled to share this because I believe that many are going to wake up to this understanding deeply. But the hour when people will really begin to be hungry and seeking and knocking may not be until after the hour of eventide. So let's become ones that are not down resting as the rest, but watching and sober-minded.